On behalf of the Sustainability Reporting Standard Board of ICAI, I, Jyoti Singh, extend a warm welcome to all of you to the 30th session of our webinar series, Demystifying Sustainability, Catalyzing Growth. Today's session is centered around a critical theme, the role of boards and CFOs in driving ESG finance. We are honored to have with us our esteemed speaker, CAPG Subramanian ji, and our moderator for today, CA Riddhi Bhumit Gala ji and CA Kingjal Narendra Shah ji. Let us now begin. I would like to invite CA Riddhi Bhumit Gala ji to kindly take the session forward.
Good afternoon.
Good
Our
afternoon.
esteemed speaker, CAPG Subramaniam, a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India with 45 years of senior level experience across manufacturing and service sectors, including hospitality, having served as the CEO of a leading five-star hotel and resorts. He possesses extensive expertise in finance, corporate affairs, legal, HR, and IT, with significant contributions in implementing SAP and driving operational efficiency initiatives. He is actively associated with the professional bodies such as Confederation of Indian Industry (CII), Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry of India, and Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, contributing to committees on taxation, finance, MSME, and sustainability. He is an academic contributor to SCA syllabus development and author of books on strategic cost and financial management, project funding, and startups. He is commissioned by CII to co-author white papers on base erosion and profit sharing, sustainability, and dispute resolution with focus on MSMEs. He is a regular speaker and mentor to professionals and MSMEs. Now we hand over to Sir Subramanian sir. So you can start the session.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
First of all, my sincere thanks to the Sustainability Standard Board for giving you an opportunity to conduct a session of this on this topic, especially to the chairman and the co-chair. And the next 2 hours, I'll take you through the finance of what ESG is all about, what ESG finance is all about, what is the role of the CFO and the director in ESG, managing ESG finance. The session will be like this. As we go along, we understand what the concept of ESG and sustainability is all about, and various options available in ESG finance, investors' expectation in the overall context, society's expectation, consumers' expectation, public and the stakeholders. Then what are the due diligence exercises conducted by the potential ESG investors, then regulatory concerns, and directors and CFOs role. So that is the way I will be going about the session. Now I will start sharing the screen with you. As I mentioned, this is what is going to be the session all about: a brief oversight of ESG, need for ESG and sustainability, definition of ESG finance, what ESG investors look for, types of ESG finance, role of directors in ESG finance, and role of CFO in ESG finance. What does the 3 letters of ESG mean? We should understand what ESG means. As everybody knows, it's environment, sustainability, and governance put in a very neat nutshell. But is it so easy as it looks like? No. It's quite complicated. And where are we today? Are we on the right path? Is the world heading to the same direction? If you look at the statistics and the happenings around the globe, you will find that we are far from the stated goals that ESG wants to achieve. And as per the latest report, when we focus only on our own country, India, we are hardly compliant with 5% of the total commitments we have made to the global body on various climate actions, then sustainability, the elimination of poverty, etc. We are not on the right path at all. And before that, what are the world bodies like UN and government doing to arrest the untold damage to the environment caused by the environment danger in the future? And what is the role of corporates in this? Who profoundly impact the environment because they are one of the major users of all the resources that are available on the earth, including fossil fuels, electricity, transport, can name it, they use a major of it and they have the major impact on what sustainability and environment is all about. What does it ESG mean? It stands for environmental, social, and governance efforts that are standards used to measure an organization environmental and social impact. By the practices they follow, these three things measure as to what their contribution is, what is the impact it has had of their actions on environment and socially. And investors of late have started putting more and more rigorous emphasis on the social and governmental practices with the corporates which follow this. Though it also applies to customers who have started now seeing, you may be seeing in your own everyday life, you look for something which is sustainable product. What are the things that have gone with, like use of plastic, which is banned today. We never use it. And we try to focus on the products which we buy before we even make a decision. Suppliers, are they following the ESG parameters? So to what extent? What is our role in educating them to follow the ESG practices? Employers have become very much aware of what the practice the companies are having. In fact, a recent survey states that around 37% of the employees left the organization because they felt that their company is not following the practices which they expect them to follow. And general public, who are largely affected by the actions which happens. And how do you do this? You have various data and metrics to inform decision making for companies and investors alike. Where are we today? See here, the world is facing severe challenges on the climate front thanks to brazen growth of cities, resulting in forest cover shrinking, concrete jungles everywhere, severe exploitation of valuable resources. Otherwise, how do you explain the dramatic change in the climate that is happening today? When we think that this is not the rainy season, it rains. The climate change is so drastic, it is affecting everything so badly. Food production is affected, daily life is affected. So it is so much a problem that is happening today. What are we going to do to address this? How do we go about doing it? Do the companies possess the necessary resources to do it? That's what we look at now. And in fact, today, if you look at cities, they're all bursting at with a host of its own problems. Infrastructural issues, transportation issues, pollution issues, carbon issues, so many things every city is facing today. And facility available very, very little. There is practically no green cover whatsoever. Water shortage. In fact, the city where we live, Bangalore, water is a major issue today. In fact, 2 years back, we ran so much out of water that we thought that a war is going to emerge in the city alone for water purposes. Fortunately, extreme weather conditions are to it that we are surplus in water, at least in the current year, but we don't know what's going to be in future. Not that we are not aware of it. All of us are aware of it. What are we doing about it? The action is very little and too slow. We are responsible for the environment we live in, to society and for further future generations. Because if we keep on exploiting the resources we have at our disposal, the way at which we are exploiting it, we won't leave anything for future generations. A day may come when you have to show to your child that this is called a tree in a picture. Let us not get into that. It's a very dangerous situation we are trying to get into. The three dimensions of ESG. Environmental refers to whether the organization is operating as a steward of the environment and covers environmental issues like climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, biodiversity, carbon emissions, waste management, and pollutions. I am afraid to say that if you measure the parameters of corporates on these scales, very little has been done, barring a few companies which do contribute a lot. But by and large, the medium-sized companies, MSMEs, etc., are first of all not aware and do not have the resources committed to them to handle these kind of issues, even though they would try to do it. That is the reason why this progress is very slow. It is where the large corporates have to come into play and help them, handhold them, and see that we all go together to issue what to solve this issue which you are facing today. Social refers to the impact the organization has on the people, culture, and communities, and looks at the social impact of diversity, inclusivity, human rights, and supply chains. See the impact it has on this in social. It encompasses a vast spectrum involving the people, its culture, and communities. And today, people are very much aware as how the company operates, what are the best practices they follow in terms of management, in terms of governance, in terms of ESG, etc. So unless they are very, very careful, it can affect their reputation and standing in the market. And governance refers to how the organization is directed and looks at corporate governance factors like executive compensation. This was a major thing which is now happening today, what's called equal pay for equal remuneration and gender remuneration. So executive compensation need to be tailored in not just to this way, but it has to be fair and transparent. Succession planning, how effective the companies are in planning a succession, because none of us are going to be permanent on this planet, and we need to have succession planning. Succession planning needs to be done in such a way you groom the right person for the right job and at the appropriate time so that the continuity is ensured. And what are the practices the board follows and shareholder rights? Whether the board follows the proper practices, ethical practices, whether systems and procedures are set in, how long do they meet, what are the overseeing rights which the board sets, everything is being scrutinized very, very much today. Why is ESG important? Because these are all the reasons. Companies can have major impact on its surrounding ecosystem. Has become vividly clear how much they can contribute to the area where they operate, how they protect the environment where they operate, how they ensure that ecosystem is maintained, how they take care of their surrounding communities. These are all become vividly clear now. Whether on a global scale or within the local community, corporates are expected to contribute. People have become increasingly concerned with various issues such as climate change, human rights, and execute. The climate change, of course, is a major issue which dominates the scenario today. Apart from that, human rights have also taken center stage now. People do expect to be treated very fairly and compensated fairly. Embedding sustainability. So what is sustainability, first of all? Sustainability is nothing but an offshoot of ESG. That is, once we start following the practice of environment, social governance, etc., it needs to be sustained over a period of time. That is why I put the word there, top of the mind for executives and investors. Every executive can start thinking, how do I sustain the action I have started? It is not enough I start something and leave it there and friction starts happens again. Someone else comes, starts again all over, and he does something different. It is not expected to be done. This problem should not crop up. Investors have become very, very aware before they invest in the company, not only from the point of view of ESG finance, but also on general level. They look at the company's practice, how sustainable they are, what are the practices they follow in terms of ESG before they take a call, and they do give ratings for each and everything before they commit to invest in the company, and they do follow up also as to what practices the companies do. And nothing better than the stock market traditionally mirror public sentiment. US sneezes and we have a shake-up in the market here. That's what happens today. And even ESG practices are open to public document, and the public are trying to move away from companies which are not following the traditional practices, best practices. That is, I use the word called, investors have recalibrated their asset management strategy to focus not only on financial performance, but also various ESG factors. In fact, I'm not trying to, because I know a little bit of the subject, I try to weigh in before I even try to buy a stock in the market as to what are the practices the companies do, whether it is worth investing in that. Going forward, whether the companies will follow best practices or because of their misadventures or inability to follow, what will the impact the company will have on the stock market, whether it will perform properly, etc. That is what the investors have started focusing on. They don't want to put their good money on bad ventures. More than ever, businesses are being scrutinized by institutional investors. They are the major chunk of people who bring in the money to the company. They scrutinize the companies from all parameters. They have got certain strategies and it must align with them before they even decide to invest in the companies. See how the ESG investing and other strategies are aligning each other. Many investment decisions are influenced by ESG criteria today. I explained to you, unless the companies follow and make it appear that they follow it, investors are a little bit reluctant to put in money on such ventures. Investors have taken a new approach to asset management today. They weigh this process also before they even decide to invest. Various factors include traditional financial metrics, of course, that do continue. What is the profitability? What are the cost-saving measures the company has entered into? Normal financial things which we look at, that also they look into. And added opportunity and risk management component. How does the company look at the risk parameters? What are the potential risks the company may follow? What are the preventive measures they put in place? How do they assess the risk? How they manage it? How they prevent it? Everything comes into factor in doing a company's valuation. SRI or sustainable investing looks at less on financial returns and more on ethical considerations. That is what is happening today in the market. For example, an investor may award mutual funds or an exchange traded fund if one of the companies operates in an industry that has been detrimental to the environment. I think Enron is one of the things which comes out readily at your mind because of the wrong practices. The entire market went for a crash. Is one of the. There are so many companies like that. Like for instance, coal mining companies. Despite the fact that they claim that they are taking all kinds of measures, a certain inevitability creeps in when we are a little reluctant to invest in such companies. In the light of these new investment strategies, multiple ESG funds have sprouted up, signaling the growing importance of ESG in today's stock market. Apart from the direct investments the investors do in ESG funds, many of them are managed through mutual funds, which we will see as we go along now. So better that organizations buckle up and be ready to face the ESG challenges because their reputation and everything depends on this totally. Why CSR? CSR is one of the components of environment, social and governance because it falls entirely under the category of social responsibility the company carries. You are all aware that every company that makes a profit above threshold level are required to allocate certain portion of their profits into CSR activities and prove that they like developing the surrounding which they operate, adopting a village, building schools, colleges, etc. for the benefit. Initiate health measures, those kind of things the companies are expected. And it also qualifies as an ESG compliance. Benefits on environment, the actions of the corporates, how it has benefited surrounding. And I have recently come across a company which operates in a metropolitan city, but being concerned about the environment, at the back of their factory, they have planted close to 300 trees, which today acts as a cover not only for the company alone, but other surroundings as well. So that is a little contribution from that organization in protecting the environment. So environmental impact is reduced, climate resilience builds up to some extent. Then biodiversity conversation, what are we doing? Because we are far seeing depletion of the biodiversity resources in the country. With the result, animals have no food, no shelter. They are all seen on the streets of the cities today. That's because we have created a situation, we have occupied the places which are supposed to be occupied by these species. So this needs to be very carefully taken care of. Then what is the correlation on living beings? Are we not affected by climate changes? How do you describe the living styles of today compared to what it was today? So that needs to be very carefully weighed in. Human well-being, animal welfare. What is the role of sustainability? As I spoke in the beginning, sustainability is part and parcel of ESG because unless we sustain our action, ESG cannot function in its fulcrum. Many consumers, as I mentioned, want sustainable products, even if it means purchasing at a premium. They are willing to go that extra distance to buy the product which they feel will be sustainably manufactured and is not containing artificial colors, etc. it is not health hazard. So those kind of things, consumers have become very aware today. They don't make purchase decision that fast. They weigh so many considerations. And the statistics says they're willing to spend 9.7% more for products that are made sustainably. That is why you see a lot of companies coming out and saying that our products are sustainable. But one claims alone won't do. You may be able to fool the customer once, twice, not a third time. He will not come back and buy your product if he finds out over a period of time that the claims are tall and only on paper. So that has to be very carefully thought of. And see how what happens when you do a sustainable practice, what kind of trust you build among the customer. They repeat, customer starts coming back to you, and the word spreads in the market that this company is a company which practices sustainability as a core of its activities. We should encourage this organization. And sustainability, a recent consumer study also has identified sustainability as a driver of brand's intent. What does the brand convey? Whether it conveys what sustainability practice the companies follows. And who drives this? It is Gen Z, millennial generations who hold more purchasing power, are 20% more likely than older generations to purchase from brands they deem to be more sustainable. Not that the older generations don't do it, but the awareness among the older generations are much less than the awareness between the Gen Z and millennial generation, because they are more exposed to latest technologies and trends that's happening in the market today. But they influence older generations a lot. That needs to be remembered. They influence them in what they spend. They tell them, look here, this is what you're supposed to do. So the older generations slowly also are coming on track. And employees also put emphasis on their employer. Nearly a fifth. This is what the statistics say. 20% for Gen Z and 19% of millennials have switched jobs due to environmental concerns because they thought the working environment is such that my health is going to be affected. The environmental is not protective enough for me to thrive and succeed and live a healthy and happy life. So this also influences the employee's decision. Then companies must leverage ESG to gain traction. Now we'll come to the main crux. What is ESG finance? Incorporates environmental, social, and governance factors into investment and financing decisions to promote sustainability and long-term financial resilience. See what the term indicates. It incorporates, as I told, environmental. These are all factors which a potential investor builds in before he even makes a decision to invest in a company or invest in mutual funds. He studies the company's parameters very closely, sees what all practice the company follows, and builds this as one of the core elements before he even decides to commit finance. Because there are special vehicles available for ESG finance alone. So these are all the factors which he weighs in before the money is given to them. For instance, what is the company's impact on the environment, like carbon emissions, its relations with people, such as employee welfare and human rights, and how it is managed, including ethical conduct and executive pay. Again and again, these are the things which they are emphasizing upon. Human rights, employee welfare, how the employees are treated, whether fair rights are given to the thing, equal treatment for equal pay, and the conduct should be ethical, not only in the books, but it should be very transparent. And how is the pay packet loaded? Whether it is fair and rewarding to each and every employee who works in the company. These are the basic parameters which are looked into by the potential investor. Key components. Environmental. Evaluates a company's impact on the environment, including its carbon footprint, waste management. You have seen how many companies. See, today the regulatory requirements are very, very rigid as far as waste managements are concerned. Still, we find that unchallenged, uncontrolled waste dumpings are happening into rivers, etc., which get polluted in turn, killing the sustainability of the river itself, and you cannot use the water. So many problems because of it. Water usage, whether are we using it, because water is becoming more and more scarce with the glaciers that are also coming down so fast. It's going to be very difficult in the future for us to have water. So how economically we are utilizing it how conservative you're doing it, those things have to be looked into. And how we are trying to contribute for climate change, whether we continue, because the world temperatures are rising so fast, sea levels are rising. These are all a very huge cause for concern. How we are, what is our contribution to that, so that we don't, that otherwise this emphasis is please plant more trees, contribute to afforestation, etc. That is what climate change mitigation means. And how we adapt ourselves. Social focuses on company's relationship with stakeholders. Stakeholders means employees, customers, and communities. It does not stop there. Not only your employees need to be engaged with, you maintain proper relation with them, treat them very fairly, give them a very good work environment, ensure the work-life balance exists. Not only that, customers, how do you maintain your relation with your customers so that they feel happy and feel like coming back to you again and again. Communities, how do you engage the communities surrounding the place where you are operating, or you go, you spread your geographical wings to see that you do work for the betterment of the community. Then aspects like labor practices, diversity means today the labor law is amended to see that even transgenders need to be given equal pay for equal work. It is, and you cannot discriminate between male and female employees anymore. They have to be included in all the thing. And women have to be employed on all jobs today. They cannot be restricted to work only in a particular thing, saying they are not capable of working. So these are one of the things which the investors look at. Employee health and safety and community development. Governance. Examine a company's leadership, how good the leadership is, how do they lead the organization, what are the ethical practices they follow, what are the example they set, what are the risk management practices they built in, what are the ESG parameters they look into, how often it is viewed, how often the company is managed, everything is looked into. Executive compensation, board structure is very, very important today because investor is aware of what money is putting in, looks at the composition of the board. Who is sitting on the board of directors? How do they conduct the operations? What is their background? What is their reputation, etc. are all looked into by today's investors. And what internal controls and systems and processes the company follows, because this is the fulcrum on which the company operates. If you have weak internal controls and system, it will immediately reflect on the updated operations of the companies going from bad to worse. And how far it is compliance oriented to regulations and ethical standard, because that is scrutinized on a regular basis by all the stakeholders, including the investors. How ESG finance works. Investment decisions. Investors use ESG criteria to identify companies that are more sustainable, potentially leading to better long-term financial performance and reduced risk. This is what they look at. How sustainable the company is in following ESG practices. What are the long-term financial, because by following, as I mentioned in the beginning, by building trust in the community and in the customer, it helps you to expand your business, which in turn leads to better financial performance of the organizations. So that is also taken into consideration by the potential investors. How far the company will go, whether it can invest, will it sustain itself in seeing that the same practices are followed, whether the business will improve. They keep monitoring on a regular basis. Then what are the company's ESG strategies? Integration influences corporate strategy by encouraging companies to operate more responsibly and sustainably. In fact, the investors push the companies. Please follow these practices. Then only we look at in keep remaining invested or even investing in the organization. And risk and opportunity assessment. How good the risk assessment practices are helps assess the company's reliance in environmental and social risks and opportunities for innovations in sustainability. What are the goals of ESG finance? Sustainable economic activity. What does it mean? To direct capital towards long-term sustainable activities and projects. So that is why the concept of ESG finance has come into play today, because companies' resources which are used for the purpose of business cannot be diverted for the purpose of indulging in ESG activities. That is why the concept of ESG finance has come into existence, and separate lending vehicle is available for it. But these are all the things which they look at. That is, the company will use the money which has been given to them for engaging in only sustainable activities and projects. But only exception is the money spent towards CSR, which are nothing but surpluses allocated to a certain percentage as directed for the purpose of enabling CSR activity. Please remember, ESG finance cannot be used for your CSR activities. It is may be very, very clear about it, except for some exceptions, small exceptions here and there, for which again you need to take permissions. Corporate responsibility. To encourage companies to adopt responsible practices that benefit the environment and society. Only such things will be eligible for ESG finance. They have to demonstrate visibly that they are following these practices. There are parameters and reports which are generated based on which scores are given by these companies. And they are regularly followed up and reviewed. Improved financial performance to show that integrating ESG factors can improve investment returns and long-term financial health. Because once you start following, become a responsible corporate citizen, your stock in the market goes up. It opens a huge window of opportunity for you to improve your business, not only from in terms of this thing, but among the larger this thing. What are the criteria? This is what happens. ESG investors help inform the investment choices of large institutional investors, such as public pension funds. See, for example, in Q4 of 2024, sustainable funds reached 3.2 trillion in assets under management globally, according to the report from the Morningstar. But this only has touched a small fraction of the bottom. Maybe around 2 to 3% only has happened. Lot of things remains to be done. Then mutual fund companies offer exchange traded funds and other financial products that follow ESG investing strategies. We have scratched the surface. We have a long way to go. How do they do the metrics for ESG finance? I have taken one asset management company, which is a well-known management company, which uses certain parameters before it decides to lend for ESG purposes. What do they do? Other companies also follow this merit of ESG factors to help identify companies positioned for strong long-term performance. Over a period of time, they've established metrics and parameters that help them to easily assess whether the company which has come to them for seeking money for ESG activities or which these people identify for investment are following the practices we expect them to follow. In other words, they would not like to throw good money after bad ventures. The criteria are set by analysts who identify the relevant issues facing specific sectors, industries, and companies. Each company has got its own issues because the environment in which they operate, the surrounding in which they operate, the segment in which they operate have their own problems. So these are all identified, and to the extent possible, they try to help and see that they fall in line and follow the ESG practices. Some of the positive qualities looked for is evaluating companies like in limiting harmful pollutions and chemicals. What is the measures I have taken? Because which let us assume for a moment that is a chemical industry which sprouts lot of ashes, etc., into the environment, damaging environment. How can you reduce by installing pollutant resisting equipments, etc.? How can you change the practice which you follow for manufacturing chemicals? These are all the things they look at. Are they using renewable energy, sources like solar, etc.? Paying employees a fair wage. See, this keeps on repeating itself. Paying employees a fair wage has become a synonym today with investors. With the result, what has happened is even normal investing has started taking on this kind of practices today. Operating with an ethical supply chain, which means the suppliers who supply goods to you also follow at least fair ethical practices and are good investors, and they are the company which seeks finance are expected to help the supply chain people as well. Maintaining a diverse board and demonstrating corporate transparency. So these are all the basic parameters which are looked into by potential ESG finance investors. What are the companies they avoid? Percolates means these are the companies which they don't look at, that earn 5% or more of their revenues directly from coal mining or hard rock mining, because they feel that they are more polluting companies and their migrating to less pollutants, etc., is a very hard choice for them. Much as they may try, they may not be able to achieve what these people expect them to do that, so they try to avoid these kind of companies. Then gambling, tobacco, weapons, they never invest their money in such activities. And involved in major controversies, see, related to human rights, animal welfare, environmental concerns, governance issues, product safety. If these or any one of these parameters come into play, you won't get the money you are seeking. This is how the investment firms track the performance. I have given names of the companies which do that. Companies such as JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs publish annual reports that extensively review their ESG approaches and bottom line results. These are all wealth of information for companies which are already following ESG, would like to review, would like to refine it, and become one of the responsible corporate citizens. And what even bottom line results are also published to show that how companies are following good ESG practices have fared, or companies don't have not followed how they have fared. Everything is available in the reports. The ultimate value wage depends on whether it encourages companies to drive real change for the common good or merely check boxes and public, because they don't want companies just to tick some of the columns which are there and the checklist saying that yes, I have done it. Whether they have actually done it or not, it will be known by the research which they conduct. And they have managed to such an extent they have found companies fudging the reports and publicly shamed them. Though even though it may not have happened in our country, abroad it is very common. And tobacco and defense are industries avoided BSG investors, but historically they have produced above average market, and but still they don't want to go to such companies because they should not be made to appear as if they're trying to encourage these kind of industries. So they like to avoid them as much as possible, despite the fact that they give above market returns. See, according to survey Investopedia and 300 readers, nearly half of ESG investors said they would be willing to take a 10% loss over 5 years in investor company that aligns exceptionally with ESG standard. See the way the wording. Please read this very, very carefully. Investors are willing to take a little bit of loss provided they feel that over a period of 5 years, the company will come into ESG standards and they can recover their money over the period of time. In other words, the companies which follow ESG standards are a preferred investment destination today. How do they do the risk evaluation? Especially in India, ESG investors, what do they do? Systematically integrating environmental, social, and governance factors into their analysis alongside traditional financial metrics. See, during at least till recently during working days, we used to give them financial projections, etc., and give all supporting documents saying that we will do this, we will do that, we will do that. This is how we are planning to achieve what we have projected here with backup papers, etc. But today, that is not enough. Even traditional finance, along with that, you need to give these kind of backups also with strong evidences before investments are committed. How good you are in integrating these three things: environmental, social, and governance factors. They do that analysis and a due diligence is conducted. Remember, your figures are not accepted on its face value. They do their own due diligence, investigations, etc., before they come back to find out and verify that what you're saying is correct. How it helps them assess a company's long-term sustainability, how resilient the company is over a period of time to withstand the shocks, the risks, etc. And is there any hidden risk there which you would have missed? That also will come out here, because hidden risks can harm a company unless you are a pro-risk awareness man. What are these things? Ratings, how do they do? Investors use ratings from both global agencies like MSCs and India-specific providers like ESG risk A and crisis ESG. Ratings are given, and these are all rating agencies who are accredited by SEBI. They only have to do the ratings, and these rating certificates need to be submitted to the potential investors. They insist on these certificates. And what does this say? Identify a company's exposure to material ESG risks and assess its capacity to manage them compared to industry peers. How do they fare? So this is how they weigh it. Then regulatory framework compliance. See, apart from the already existing regulatory requirements which we are facing on a regular basis, India's regulations are getting tightened more and more. Investor scrutiny has started scrutinize adherence to rules set by SEBI, which includes mandatory BRSR reporting. Non-compliance is viewed as a significant governance and regulatory risk. Apart from other compliances, this has also become very important today. How do they do the risk evaluation? As I told you, they do a due diligence and deep analysis. Asset managers and institutional investors conduct rigorous ESG due diligence. Each and every parameter, there are about 1,000 metrics which are put into place, and they measure it on those 1,000 metrics, and score is given to them. How the companies fare under those metrics, especially before major investment acquisitions are placed, because major investments involve giving term loans, not only for ESG finance, or the company may be IPO bound company. So you need to do more and more assessment. That is, you will find today is a mandatory disclosure by the companies of the various risk factors which they are facing in their businesses from all angles, from sales, competition, raw material, whatnot. About 7-8 parameters on which the companies are required to disclose in the red herring prospectus. And those things are analyzed and rated by these risk evaluators. Then they do an internal audit, stakeholder mapping they do, overall the stakeholders, and industry specific scenario in which the company operates, and what are the risks the company faces, and what is it that measures they have taken to camouflage or take care of avoiding the risk. This is where the directors and CFOs have to take a center stage. See, gone are the days when CFOs have to only do number crunching. It is all gone today. CFOs are expected to be contributors to the and drivers to the growth of business. They should have the risk-taking ability. They should foresee what's coming in the way. That is where they take a lot of, and they act as the ears and eyes of the management. They in turn guide directors who are already well aware of what they are expected to do. So there's they have to take a centrage in driving the whole ESG activity. They not only need to ensure that the compliance is at its best, but also they need to be aware of regulations, UN mandate that there are 17 goals which the UN has mandated for the worldwide adoption and compliance within a certified time of frame. There are timelines and goals set till about 2070, whereby you should have reduced everything to one level. I am not getting into the details of that because a very long 17 charter lists. And what India has committed to that need to be done. For instance, India has agreed that by 2030, I will bring down the carbon emissions to a certain level. By 2047, I will be in such a level. 2070, I will totally eradicate. And by 2030, my poverty level will go down by this level. And sustainable practice will follow. Water conservation, lot of commitments India has made. So the CFOs and directors need to be aware of our country's commitment for this and then accordingly follow these parameters, failing which you may be black marked. Common risks which evaluate whether climate transition, preparedness for low carbon economy, including reliance on fossil fuels, not the traditional fuels, exposure to carbon taxes, and elemental national climate goals. This is what I mentioned. We have got everyone said climate goals which India has set for itself. We are a very long way off because even today the awareness and the willingness to put in the efforts is lacking, and we all have a collective responsibility to drive this to see the companies follow these practices for the greater common good of all of us. So because we need to see a society where we can comfortably, environment friendly, and leave something for the future generation as well. Then, physical climate risk, how they are impacted by the direct happenings in the sudden changes in the climate. What they have done, water scarcity, what are their plans to ensure that they still survive and manage the water, how effectively they use it, how conservatively they use it, and flooding, etc., how they protect themselves. Then pollution and waste management. Policies, what are the policies they put in place for waste reduction, recycling, hazardous waste disposal, overall environmental complaints within the regulatory framework, on whether they are following, what are the measures they put in place to see that they follow, to the vendors whom they've engaged to manage these waste and pollution management. Are they following the practices which are required to be followed? How do I assess it? How do I conduct a due diligence on them? Whether I blacklist them if they find by waste management is not being followed by them properly. All the things are taken into consideration. Then comes social bits, labor and human rights, companies' labor practices, workplace safety, diversity and inclusion, fair wages, human rights across its supply chain and operations. See how important this is. You need to protect labor and human rights by these following these kind of practices, and they are assessed. In fact, I am also practicing chartered accountant. One of the internal audits which we conduct, one of our areas is this, and help the management find out whether they're going wrong somewhere. So we are on one of the audits today where we are assessing the practices followed by the companies, and it's not a fault finding mission, is to see that we follow the right ethics and right practice everywhere. That's all. And do course correction where it is required. And then community relations. Poor engagement with local communities can cause reputational damage and operational disruptions. Let us assume for a moment that a company is operating in an environment which is near a local panchayat, and a community is living around that. Can you isolate them and still hope to survive and ensure that your business thrives? No, not. You need to engage them very purposefully. The message has to go very clearly that the company's purpose of putting up an establishment nearby is to ensure that the local communities are helped and their lives are uplifted and their requirements are met. Many companies are engaging such kind of activities in a very noble way. With the result, the support of the local communities counts a large way. Then data security and privacy. Every company is aware that we're exposed to cyber security and customer for employees, how well you protect your data, that it is not exposed for theft, etc. What are the practices you follow? Everything are scrutinized. What are the common risks? Again, governance risks, board level oversight, board composition, independence. How independent are the independent directors? Are they exercising the role and the responsibility cast on them? Are they discharging it? Are they pointing out the deviations which the board delves into? And are they red flagging the issues that the companies face? How often they review? Which are the committees? How often they do it? How aware they are of the ESG risks? Everything is measured. Then is the company passing the what ethical business practices are? High policies and anti-corruption. In fact, there are companies which have its own manual on what anti-corruption practices are. Not only in relation to the outside world with whom you deal, but within the company also, policies are framed and that is measured. That is also evaluated by the ESG investors. Anti-bribery and ethical conduct. Strong practices to reduce scandals and fraud. How do I do that? Those scandals don't erupt, frauds don't happen. Then, shareholder rights and transparency. Poor governance and opaque practices can lead to significant risks, eroding the shareholders' confidence in the management. The share value will start going down and it will become a big problem. And what are the reporting practices you indulge in? It should be very robust and transparent that anybody can walk in and do an audit and find that what they have said is correct. That's what they expect. Challenges. Still many challenges remain. Despite all these things put in place, there are challenges like greenwashing. Because till today, investors are skeptical on this. Are ESG claims? They are often based on voluntary self-reported data that can be exaggerated. Despite the checks and balances put in, this is still a large potential problem for ESG investors. Despite all the effort they may put, it will be little difficult to this thing again. There are possibilities that it can be exaggerated and it may escape their scrutiny. That is why what they have done is they have started involving third-party specialists who are experts in managing ESG practices and ask them to assess and certify it. And they take the certificate. And such agencies who are ESG practitioners are to be accredited with SEBI and other people. Only such people can do it. So to some extent, they're trying to mitigate these greenwashing practices. Inconsistent data and standards. Data qualities can be an issue, definitely, unless the robust data collection can be possible only for organizations which have set the standard bar very high in collecting the data. For smaller companies, unlisted companies, it's always a challenge. You have to take the data furnished with them with a pinch of salt. How far it is reliable, how far it can be relied upon is a little thing which need to be worried about. Lack of enforcement. All of us are aware how the Indian enforcement mechanism works. We have a host of regulations to follow, host of systems to think. Every day we sit and learn complaints. In fact, a stage has come and I think we need compliance officers and complaint departments to go through the various laws and regulations which you have. So the net effect of this is enforcement becomes an issue because the government has put in place so much of regulations. It doesn't have the mechanism to see whether it is all enforced in a proper way. So there's a slippages do happen. See, investors are not sitting as watchdogs to say that they follow. They do up to a certain extent, but enforcement has to come from self or consciousness and our own way to do it. And penalties. Despite the penalties being enforced, many companies go scot-free. They pay the penalty and continue to practice the same thing. For instance, we don't have a system whereby the companies are blacklisted from carrying out certain activities. There may be various reasons behind that. Whereas Western countries have started adopting a lot of measures in this respect. They impose severe penalties on them and stop another activities to bring them back on track. ESG investment market in India is relatively new and a limited historical track record for ESG funds and indices can make it challenging for investors because if my memory serves me right, this ESG funds, etc., is a new phenomena which has caught on. With the ESG practices gaining prominence and the need for fund coming in, and that investors also starting thinking, why not start looking at this potential thing? It has started catching on very slowly. We are still new to it. So the data availability is a little problematic today. Very limited data is available for assessing it. CFOs and directors need to focus on the accuracy of data and best practices to attract ESG investment. Data is it has to be vetted very, very carefully and then only it should be let out. Otherwise, we will end up in difficulties. How do the ESG finance flow? Another aspect for which flows is mutual funds. It's a lease and landscape. Many companies have got so many funds. Birla, Tata, you name it, all of them have got these funds through which they collect money from the potential investors and invest in companies which follow the ESG practices. So that the companies satisfy three critical areas like environmental aspect, consider the company's impact on the environment. We already seen this. So see, these are the things which they look into before they invest. This is what the Security and Exchange Board of India has suggested we should follow. 5 types of funds. So that the market from the beginning invests only in good companies and it develops into a robust and manageable market. The money does not get wasted on unwanted things and the investors are forced to burn their fingers into schemes which do not give them any returns, etc. And it devises the natural death. They are suggested like this, exclusions. What do they do is, do not meet certain ESG criteria. Example, companies involved in activities that have a negative impact on the environment or those with poor governance practices may be excluded. It is very easily said that. Then how do I find out that these practices are happening? That is where the companies conduct their due diligence before selecting such companies, invest in them. So SEBI is already warning the potential investors, please look for such organizations. These are the things which they have putting into place. Integration. In this category, ESG practices are integrated into the traditional investment processes. That means even before I try to do an investment, I conducted due diligence and built that ESG into it. Then only I thought to think of putting the money inside. That is, along with financial performance, ESG factors are also considered while making investments. That's why I said when you give them a report, not only financial report has to be given, your report regarding your compliance with ESG also needs to be added so that informed decisions can be made by potential ESG investors. And one more other thing which SEBI has suggested is best-in-class positive screening. This category involves investing in companies that are leaders in their respective industries in terms of ESG performance. There are many companies in India which follow. In fact, one of the recent studies by Indian Institute IIM Bangalore have listed about 10 companies which are following best practices and have been recommended for investing in ESG funds. Then what they have said, impact investing made into companies, organization funds with intention to generate. They have an intention, good intent to generate, provided necessary funds and support is available. Generate a measurable, beneficial, social, or environmental impact alongside a financial return. Most of them will be startups, etc., or companies that just set into practice. But from the beginning, they have decided that will follow good corporate practices. I'll be a responsible corporate citizen. I'll follow ethical practice, etc. So these kind of companies are also to be looked into as SEBI, so that because they also need support. Sustainable objectives includes ones that invest in projects or initiatives that are aimed at achieving specific sustainable development goals. Yes, they have set parameters. Within a so period of time, I have got these goals to achieve. So those that also can be looked into. And transition related, because there will be companies which have started or in transition phase of achieving it, etc. And so far the track record has been in the right path. They going forward, they will go in the right path. So such kind of companies also can be looked into. Now, we have been talking about the scores which are used by the investors, how it is calculated. ESG scores are used to use a company's ethical process, practices, and sustainability. See what it involves in India. 1,000 pieces of data which form more than 500 indicators. See the extent to which the investors go, how much deep dive they do to come into some conclusion before they even invest in companies. Each piece of data, an indicator is scored from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, etc. Ratings are given before they arrive at a final conclusion. And importance assigned, whether it comes into the A category, B category, or category 1, category through, like that they assign them. And companies' risk management practices are see how good the company's risk management policies are. Has the company assessed what are the various risks the company faces? Going forward, what kind of risks they can face in their operations? What have they done to mitigate it? How they are managing it? How they are forcing the risk? Do they have a risk management committee? What does the committee do? How often it meets? What are the reports it generates? These are all coming into that framework. And these scores are combined to form overall score. The scores are divided into 3 categories after that. Again, coming back, here importance is given to environmental, social, governance. These categories are split into 19 main themes and 35 key issues. The final rating shows the company's sustainability potential for growth and future performance. After they come to conclusion, based on that, if they feel that the company is scoring A or A plus or A plus plus, they take a calculated risk to invest in such companies. Other if they fail in that, a decision is taken not to invest in such companies. Yeah, this is one more option which is available today. is ESG linked green financing. Why do we give the name called green? Because we are trying to make the environment more green and livable, etc. That's why it's called a green financing option. What does it relate to? It has become a pivotal form of sustainable finance that integrates the borrower's environmental, social, and corporate performance with cost and availability of capital. These loans are specifically given to companies that follow sustainable practices at a very reasonable and affordable rates compared to the traditional loans. That's why it's called, and it has been earmarked only for financing green activities which the companies follow. That way, it says a borrower who plans to implement sustainable practices and objectives will be given even more committed to achieving agreed targets and ratings. ESG linked financial focus on the overall ESG activity of the borrower comprises of these are all the things. What are all the green financing options available to you? Sustainability related loans, bonds, deposits, sustainable bonds, or green bonds. These are all the categories in which the companies can raise funds for the purpose of investing in ESG activities. What are the highlights? Both the borrower and the lender, it is very beneficial. How it helps the borrower? It helps in improving ESG performance, building good relations with stakeholders because you already started practicing good ESG parameters through the money you have got. You have demonstrated your commitment and it is visible everywhere for you to all around to see. So the stakeholders are also happy and it helps you to build relations with them. Stakeholders in the sense your immediate employees, your shareholders, your customers, your suppliers, and the larger community. These are all have to be taken together. And you, by practicing this, you are reducing your risk that you are exposed to while doing the business. And what happens is, once you start demonstrating your commitment in the market by following these practices, see what happens. Increasing borrowing from wide sources of capital markets because the word spreads in the market. It is very visible. The company follows good ethical practices, not in terms of all the three parameters like environment, social, governance, etc. So it is worth investing in the companies and investors will fall head over shoulders to invest in companies and the companies can get money at the rate at which it wants, thereby reducing the cost of borrowing. For lenders, means complying with portfolio alignment strategy because this is what they want. What are all the things I'm going to do by giving this? If they follow, this will not happen. Worldwide trends in ESG linked instruments. As a strategy, it has witnessed a maturity rise in the last couple of years. But in India, if you look at it, it is still at a nascent stage, barring the large corporates, others are yet to, because it has not gained traction the way it should gain, maybe partly because of the reluctance on the part of the corporate to venture into this or not following ESG practices at a level that is expected to be followed by the investors. All may be contributory factors, but it is slowly gaining traction. But going forward, maybe another 5 to 10 years time, this will become a major thing in India for financing options because it is slowly changing because everybody started feeling the need for climate change. Even small companies, if they are told and educated and handled, they will certainly like to follow this practice because they know in the long run, they will also like to be projected as good corporate citizens. They will like to become big, they will like to attract capital, etc. So they will also fall into the right product. They are guided on the right path. Who are the companies that have benefited more? Automotive, renewable energy. They are the two sectors which have benefited most from this practice. For instance, companies like Maruti, Hyundai, etc. follow a lot of ESG practices and it is demonstrated very visibly into the public domain. So they get a lot of money. And renewable energy, automatically they're bound to get it because they follow those practices. Why does it matter? ESG score and why does it matter? Keep in mind that ESG metrics are a crucial part of organizational performance. Applied correctly can boost the company's business. Investors increasingly seek assurance that their funds contribute to sustainable initiatives, otherwise they won't lend or they won't invest. What is an ESG score? The rating system is to evaluate, offering a standardized framework to assess companies' ESG practices and providing a foundation for finance. Who are the prominent rating agencies? Dun & Bradstreet, Sustainalytics, MCA ESG Ratings, Institutional Shareholder Services, ESG Solutions, FTSE Result, Thomson Reuters ESG Research, ESG Risk Crisis. These are all the accredited, most famous rating agencies across the board, and investors, as of today, would like to rely on the certifications and ratings and by these agencies who are SEBI accredited rating companies. What are the motivations? Why should I go for ESG finance? What is it there for me? What is the impact in this if I go for it? Green M refers to price differential or premium at which green bonds are traded compared to conventional bonds issued by the entity. Because the green bonds attract more coupon rates than traditional bonds. Traditional bonds, everyone is used for normal business purposes, etc. But whereas green bonds are used for in specific purpose like promoting the ESG activities. So obviously it attracts better coupon rates. Investors do look for it and invest in it. Signaling effect shows the borrower's commitment to social and environmental causes like commitment to sustainability, transparent communication, cost savings, use of energy efficient appliances, reducing the cost. These are all the signal you give by taking this money. This is what I do. That is why I mentioned that these bonds trade at a premium. Then resource efficiency, risk mitigation, investor confidence, reputation, environment and customer confidence, employee engagement, supply responsibility, stock market reward. See the benefits of following good ESG practices. So why you will not to be financially motivated to go in for this? So much of benefit you get by following these kind of practices. Now we come to the crux of the subject. What is the role of directors and CFOs in driving ESG finance? Why is the need for it? Increasing emphasis on ESG transformation across the globe. Who are all the people who are involved in India also in ensuring that we follow these things? They have laid several guidelines, practices, etc., regulatory compliances, reporting systems, etc., which are all laid down by these people, about which the CFOs and the directors need to be aware of. That is why I spend a little time on parameters used by the ESG investors, etc., because they need to know about it so that they know what to follow, what role they are expected to play before they go for ESG finance. And in turn, by following good ESG practices, go for finance across the spectrum. So who are all the agencies? Ministry of Corporate Affairs, SEBI, Pollution Control Board, Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change have laid down several guidelines which are significant bearing in raising ESG finance. Because these guidelines need to be followed when you apply to the agency for ESG finance. They will measure you on these parameters. For instance, if you take the Minister of Corporate Affairs, various regulations which they have with reference to holding of meeting, stakeholder engagement, then filing of returns, etc., will be looked into. Whether you are compliant with all that, and they will cross-check it, because today anybody can get into anything and verify whether what you claim is correct or wrong. Similarly, several regulations will be made by the listed companies. Then pollution control measures, when you have done it, how certified you are, whether what green certified, platinum certified, etc. That is looked into. Then Minister of Environment has got its own set guidelines for industries which are located, and the clearance is given only to them when they follow those guidelines. So what is the score on their scale? That also is looked into. So that is where directors have a great responsibility in not only ensuring and adhering to the regulation, but also sustain it. Yes, it is absolutely important. It is not enough that I do it only for the purpose of getting money from ESG investors. But I need to demonstrate and prove that I've used the money for the purpose for which I took it, and I must sustain the activities, and directors have a great role in that, in ensuring that it is sustained and followed, so that it boosts the stakeholders and investor confidence, and it is in the overall interest of the company. What are the critical aspects you have to look into? Pay attention to environmental aspect like reducing carbon emissions, improved energy efficiency. See what are the alternate sources of energy available to me, how I can use it, how can I reduce my electricity consumption, how can I reduce my water consumption, what best practice I can follow without sacrificing the quality of production, etc. need to be looked into. CFOs and directors have got a great role to play. I'm again repeating, CFOs are not number crunchers anymore. They need to be involved in business on a day-to-day basis. Then social, legally relate to workers, consumers, dealers, communities, because it can potentially cause a lot of legal risks and problems which it not looked into favorably, and the companies will be left with handling only legal issues later on. Even a small issue can blow out of proportion if not handled from the legal angle properly. Governance. What are the arrangements that the company has made? How transparent the company is? What good practices? What kind of rules and regulations they have formed for their own internal governance mechanisms? Whether it is transparent, whether it gives the right signal, those things are looked into. They have to see all these things. Leadership, how effective the leadership, how forward-looking it is, whether it leads by example, etc., are to be seen by the directors, other board members, the professionals who are working in the organization, how they are doing with the set parameters with the board have laid down for it. How is the pay structure of executives, governance systems, regulatory compliance? These are all a few parameters which I mentioned here. Because these play a very crucial role by sourcing ESG finance and forms part of the due diligence exercise by investors, including the overall investing in companies. Because the due diligence exercise is carried out by the potential investor and on all these parameters. He does an independent assessment. He takes the data given by you and subjects it to scrutiny from his own way of doing things and comes to conclusions. So you have to be very, very careful in handling it. That is where the CFO has got a great role to play. Where does it come? What is the regulatory environment today as far as the ESG funds are concerned, where the directors and CFOs need to focus? There are issues of like bonds, etc., which we saw is remains falls under the ambit of SEBI, aligned with the International Capital Market Association standards. Guidelines are what? Initial disclosure. There is an offer document like IPOs, which should say what are my environmental and sustainability objectives, what are the risks I'm facing, where I have done, where I have crossed. It needs to be demonstrated and very clearly mentioned in the offer document. Then decision-making process. Who is going to make the decision of the money I get? Determine the eligibility of projects, whether the projects which I propose is eligible for the norms which are put into before even look for ESG finance, whether I'm eligible or not, need to be seen. Then regulation, NCS regulation, criteria for making projects eligible for green finance, taxonomies and green certifications from Indian global agencies. These are all the responsibilities of the CFOs and the directors. Transition bond, alignment of the objectives of the issue with India's intended nationally determined contributions. Because as I told you earlier, India has committed to the global body that these are all the things which are going to achieve in so much of time. By 2030, will become carbon dioxide will reduce so much. 2040, so much will be reduced. 2070 will become totally carbon neutral. So these are all transition periods which are going through. Whether our objectives for which we are seeking finance aligns with this, because unless our alignments are in tune with the national goals, it becomes difficult to work. Then systems and procedures track deployment of the proceeds. You should have a proper track record. Like for any project which you promote, you have a system. I get money. This is what I'm supposed to use. Where I have used it. Where is there any deviation? If there is a deviation, what is the reason I have deviated? How do you do the course correction to come back on track? So similar thing has to be put here in place. Then what are the projects I'm proposing to do? Assets selected for the use of finance. New and refinancing is also available. It is not necessary that it should invest in new machinery or equipment alone. You can even go in for refinancing as well. But so long as you put as to which projects it should be related to the ESG activity. Then finance refinancing ratio. Suppose let us assume I get about 100 rupees. How much of that I'm going to use for financing, purchase of new equipment, how much I use it for the purpose of refinancing. Then another thing is mandatory third-party reviewer certifier. Unless he certifies all that you claim, your application will be looked into. And there are specific projects alone or eligible to green. There are about 24, 25 items which are eligible for it for positive this thing. I have not quoted them here, but if you want, I can share it with everybody. It's not a problem. Then, apart from that, you need to continuously disclose. Along with annual reports, financial results, the following needs to be disclosed. Utilization of the proceeds of the issue based on internal tracking parameter, including, again, mandatory third-party certification. For instance, we are now involved in one of our companies in utilizing a CSR fund. What they have said is, on a weekly basis, they would like to have a report on how the fund that is being given is used, where all it is going, what is the progress on that, and by the time we reach one particular milestone, that need to be mandatorily certified by third party, including a certificate from a chartered accountant on the utilization of the finance that is given to you. So this is one of the mandatory requirements by SEBI. That's what it says. And if there are unutilized proceeds, how much is lying with you? When do you propose to utilize it? What is the time limit of it for yourself? An annual report in disclosure you have to make. List of project description, an amount utilized for each project, quantitative quality performance indicators, methods used for preparing performance indicators, deployment of the mitigation plan for audits. So much disclosure has to be given. Leave alone that let us assume that you got the money. But what about the disclosure requirement? These are all the mandatory requirements, which is, if you have looked at the good companies' practices, these are all things which they list in their regular listing, which is SEBI listed companies. Then impact. What impact it has had, your actions on ESG front, on the society, etc., taximonies followed by the firm. This is what you should avoid. It will put you in deep trouble. False, misleading, unsubstantiated, or otherwise incomplete claims about the sustainability of a product, service, or business operation. This leads to a total lack of collapse of the confidence which the lender may face in you and blocks all your future revenues for finance from the ESG investors. And in turn, it affects your business reputation, blocking the way for funds for other ventures as well. Guidelines of SEBI to be followed. Responsible directors and CFOs, they are the people who are responsible for this. Restricting the use of funds raised in green bond for projects that do not fall under ANSY's regulation. I need not much develop, you are all aware of it, how funds are diverted. That is strictly not permitted here because of the strict regulations that we are used to because.
Display ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇ
ಇಷ್ಟು ಇದೆ ಹೇಳಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ
ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ
ಅವಳು ಏನು ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ನೋಡಿ
ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಸರ್ ಹಲೋ ಎಲ್ಲಿ
ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ
ಇಲ್ಲ
ಇದು ಅದಾ
ಏನಿದೆ
ಏನಿಲ್ಲ
ರೈಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಹಾ
ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಹೋಯ್ತು
ಈಗ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಬಂತ
ಇಷ್ಟೊತ್ತು ಹೇಳಲಿಲ್ಲ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಐ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅವರೇ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು ಬಿಡು ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಅಲ್ಲ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹೌ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಸ್ಪೀಕ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. Then disclosure to investors in case of any such use and possible early redemption of concerns. See, if there is a deviation in the use of the funds, you will be forced to redeem these bonds which have issued much more than the earlier richer date. It's a very, very serious consequence for a company which deviates from using its funds. When continuously monitoring the projects to check if they contribute to a sustainable economy, that is also important. You need to get the feedback from the stakeholders for whom the funding has been used to see whether it has improved their economy, whether it is sustained, that needs to be seen. And we cannot choose your way to give data which you feel is comfortable to you. That is not accepted. You have to be forthright and forthcoming in sharing the data. And there are certain standards which are required to be maintained, and that has to be adhered to, including the ratings. Focus areas for directors and CFOs: sustainability linked loan, define clear sustainability performance targets, establish transparent and measurable targets. It's very important. What is it that you want to use this money for? What are your targets, etc.? How do you propose to perform this? And at the same time, don't overcommit and underachieve. Rather, give a little bit of a conservative commitment. Overachieving is always not a problem at all. And when you do that, anybody who wants to measure it should be able to do that in a transparent manner. Yes, the company has done what it speaks of. And select the key performance indicators. You should indicate what the borrower's attitude, sustainability. What is his commitment to ensure that I follow certain practices? Because it is not only the directors and CFOs who do it, there are people who need to commit to that and ensure that these practices are followed. They need to be given KPIs, and those KPIs need to be measured on a regular basis. Then you have to construct the benchmark in line with the borrower's sustainability performance, like regulations, industry standards, or previous achievements. It has to be benchmarked. What are the regulations, etc., which comes in the way? What are the industry standards that is being followed? Please take into consideration these factors before you do your performance indicators and targets. And clear link has to be established with long terms, flexibility in use of proceeds, regular review and adaptation, rename consideration, engage in stakeholder communication, consult with ESG experts, and transparent reporting. These are all key parameters. That's the end of it. Any questions are welcome.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Hello, sir.
I'm not able to hear you. Not able to hear you.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Hello, sir. Can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So, sir, we have quite a few questions.
Yeah.
The first one of them is, how has the perception of ESG evolved from a voluntary initiative to a key driver of business value?
Okay. Now, as you are aware, more and more companies and government organizations have started enforcing this through regulations. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we are committed to the world bodies that I will achieve certain parameters by so and so years. I've set benchmarks 2030, 2040, etc. Okay, leave the regulations alone. Companies as a whole of late have started realizing the dangers of not following this because of the consequences they're already witnessing, like drastic changes in climate, depletion of the natural resources, shortage of resources, etc. Everywhere it is creating a problem today. And the public and the consumers have become more and more aware in measuring a company's practice today. So companies have realized the importance of following good ESG practices. So maybe not today, even though it has made good beginning has been made now for following these practices. And what was holding them back to some extent all these days was non-availability of financing options for ESG. The windows have opened only very, very recently. The companies were a little bit reluctant to commit the funds for the purpose of ESG all these days, because they thought if I use it for ESG purposes, what will happen to my money which I have kept for business purposes? Where will it come from? Where will it finance it from? Those things were working negatively in their mind. A combination of factors were there before. So a combination of regulation plus voluntary this thing has started slowly happening. But as I put it in the beginning, we have a long way to go. But we have made the right beginning. And it is in our own hands to sustain it and take it forward by spreading the word and what good thing it has bring to the world as a whole, for us as a whole.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Next question is, what are the three dimensions of ESG and why must they be viewed as interlinked rather than independent silos?
Come back again. Sorry. I'm sorry.
What are the three
Three
dimensions of
dimensions. That is environmental, social, governance. Okay.
And-
Chan-
All are interlinked together. They cannot independently exist themselves. Unless you protect the environment and social, how can you ensure that what is social after all? How do I protect the environment? Can I sit and put some parameters and say environment is protected? Who needs to be involved in this? That is where the social parameter come to picture, because you need the involvement of the people, involvement of the resources to drive the ESG environmental aspects. Social commitment has to come in. How does it come in? You involve the community, do something better for them, plant more and more trees, build schools, etc. They're all one way of ensuring that I contribute something to the environment in which I live. And how do I drive these two factors? Governance. Unless the company's owners and the directors take it upon themselves to drive the other two factors, it will never work. If the governance practices are not good and you don't get the support which you are required to get, because it needs to flow from the top, not from the bottom. At the bottom, I have the desire to see that I implement it, but where is the support for me from the top? That is why it's always said it should be need to be integrated and followed. Otherwise, what will happen, you will do some activity in environment, social will get neglected. And then governance will not support it because there will be no parameter to measure what I have done. So where do I end? I am in end of the day, I have not met any of the parameters. Still, I am in the minus. That is, it all gets integrated together.
Okay.
But on the governance front, off the record, I'm saying this, please do not quote me. We have a long way to go. Either the directors are not aware or not educated properly on what the good government and environmental social practices are, or they turn a blind eye. It's a sad reflection. So I would rather say start from the reverse side. Put your governance structures in the proper place. Ensure you have got robust system and a commitment from the company. Very few boards I have seen are doing this on a regular basis. Majority. Plus, you might be, are you a chartered accountant?
Yes, sir.
How far you are aware of these practices? What do you think you should do? How many CFOs are educated in this? Have they volunteered for it? They think their role is only to do some number crunching and give some report at the end of the day to the management. What is it that he leaves a footprint on the environment? What is it that it is for social causes? He also lives in the same society. He also undergoes all the tortures which are going through today. What is his awareness of it? It's very, very negligible. They don't pay that attention and importance that is required to be paid to that. So all of us have got a big role to play. So it has to be integrated together. Then it will work.
True. Okay. So next question is, how is ESG finance different from traditional finance and CSR spending?
It's a good question. Traditional finance is for the purpose of running your business.
Correct.
And even today, your lenders, take for instance the institutions or the bankers, frown upon you are spending the money given to you for traditional business for CSR activities or ESG purposes. That may be one of the reasons why all these days the reluctance on the part of the corporates to spend money on ESG activities, because they're afraid that questions will be raised. Even though, pardon? Hello.
ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಇಯರ್ ಮಿಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆಯೋ ಅದು ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಪ್ಡೇಟೆಡ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ಗೆ ಡೌನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಹೇಳಿ.
Hello. So what happens is, that is one of the reasons. Even though of late, if you look at it, Do you handle project financing for traditional businesses?
Yes,
Do you
quite a
handle?
few. Yes,
Pardon?
yes. Yes, sir.
Are you aware that of late only the bankers and the lenders have started insisting that whether you follow sustainability practices? That's the only thing they do. Do
Yes.
they ever even tell you whether I can use that money for the purpose of ESG? He will say no. He will say it is a money used for unintended purposes and slap you with some penalty.
Yes.
Is it not? That is
Yes.
why the concept of ESG finance is coming into focus now. Fortunately, many mutual funds have come, etc., because the awareness has started growing. Now, people started thinking, where do you get the money from? All my profits, if I am supposed to use for sustainable causes, then I am not here to do business. I am not a charitable. At the end of the day, I need to take care of society. I need to survive as well. Where do you
Correct.
find the money from? CSR, in fact, is a totally another thing. It does not have anything to do with traditional finance because it is spent, earmark of about 5% or so from the so-and-so parameters laid down for the purpose of funding the CSR activity. Mind you, ESG finance cannot be used for CSR activities at all. But I tell you, if you look at the eligibility criteria which are put on there, some of the things are clashing with the CSR initiatives as well. Perhaps over a period of time, it will iron out itself and there will be a clear demarcation.
Okay.
Because if I am able to meet that environmental and social responsibility through CSR, I will start asking, why should I invest in ESG?
Okay.
Because
Correct.
it's going to come.
Correct. Fair.
But it's a matter of, because we're still evolving. These funds, etc., have come into focus only for the last 2 or 3 years. We have a long way to go. But we'll also catch up very soon because the way the country is progressing today, I'll tell you, compared to some of the other countries in the world, we are far ahead. Other countries have done only lip service. And I'll tell you, a big thanks has to be given to our institute for driving this initiative. At least they have formed a separate board and they are driving it in a big way today. I hope all our chartered accountant friends who have a huge role to play will come forward and adopting this whole, because they are the ones who drive the corporates. So they need to take a lead in this. There are
Correct.
companies with whom we work where the CFOs are proactively active in ESG activities. They take a lot of initiatives and do it.
Okay.
They take pride in what they have achieved and display it. Yeah.
Okay. So next question is, why are investors increasingly considering ESG factors alongside financial performance when making investment decisions?
It's a good question. Remember one thing, investors are also living in the same society. भले उसने पैसा अंदर डाला है, but because of the various regulations and the voluntary awareness of the people that we are now reaching a stage where unless we do some certain practices, we are not going to survive. If we don't survive, where will the business survive? Is it going to continue?
No.
Traditional business will slowly start falling out of favor with investors because investors, customers, stakeholders, vendors all started demanding accountability from companies. Customers, are you buying anything today just like that from a shop? What are all the parameters you keep in your mind to buy some product? Is it not? So
Yes.
if you feel that some company in which you want to invest or buy is not following, really invest money in that, you may not. So what will be the consequence of that on the company? What will happen to the money which has been lent for traditional business by the investors? They started getting that thing, it started ringing in their mind. So they said, unless I build in these things now, tomorrow the entire money investment itself will go to dogs. The company may not be able to survive because companies sooner or later will be forced to follow the practices for their own very survival itself. If not today, 5 years down the line. But the red flag has already been raised. Better they start practicing today itself. That is why the investors are now saying, I won't give you money at all. Even traditional finance will deny to you unless you demonstrate an intended responsibility to follow ESG practices.
Okay.
It is going to be the future order.
Okay.
And more scrutiny is going to come. पैसे
Okay.
इतना जल्दी मिलने वाला नहीं है.
Okay. So next question is, how can companies assess their readiness for ESG finance adoption?
I gave you a set of parameters there, no? Don't call it ESG finance adoption. Adoption is different, ESG finance is different. Adoption happens only after you get the ESG finance. So you need to better demonstrate what your ESG parameters are. What am I supposed to do for environment in which I work? What are environmental protection I will do? What are social aspects I will take care of? Whether my governance systems are robust. How do I operate within the company? What are the standards I set for myself? Assess it yourself on a plain sheet of paper. Prepare a checklist and do it. And do an honest assessment. Don't do greenwashing. Because you will get caught. You will never cross the border after that. You will not get the money.
Yes.
Because whatever you try to do as in present before them is subject to one more due diligence by experts. So better, that's why I said I have put one small sentence there. Please take the help of ESG experts to assess your readiness. And if there is something to be corrected, please correct it. Then go for ESG finance. But mind you, I'll tell you, ESG finance is available at much cheaper rates compared to the traditional finance. Because it is the government's intention to encourage and inculcate the habit of sustainable practices in the companies. They're making it as a very attractive option. And once that credibility established, the lender will come to your doorstep. Because he will see you as a very valuable company operating. I should offer him the best of finance at affordable rates. So what happens? The fallout of this ESG finance being utilized properly is you get other traditional finance as well at very competitive rates, thereby reducing your cost of borrowing, contributing to the bottom line.
Okay. Next question is, what are the key criteria that ESG investors use to evaluate companies before investment?
I already think I have shared it with you. It's a big list, big list here. Past performance, what are all the activities you're indulging in, how you have fared it, what the community feels about what you have done. You may claim something. I have built so many toilets there, but building toilet alone won't serve the purpose, no? Whether it is maintained, whether it is usable.
Yeah.
Those kind of things you've looked into. I have constructed schools, but have you gone and seen what is happening in the school? Whether education happens or anti-social elements are sitting there and doing some activities there. These are all the parameters. Some of the examples I'm trying to give you. These are all measured. And what is the perception of the company among the community is also looked into by the rating agencies or the lending agencies. What is the market perception? Because your valuation of the business has an impact on this. On these practices, the valuation automatically goes up. What happened to Baiju? It's a classic example, no?
Yes.
He took investors for a royal ride, following all the wrong practices. On all the parameters, he failed. Where is he today? There are diameters in companies like this. But you can cheat somebody for some time, not every time.
Correct.
Today, the robust mechanism put in place, ESG Finance looks into all that. I think, are you going to share the PPT with people, ma'am?
I
am
think
asking
so.
Riddhi.
Yes, PPT will be shared.
If you share, it will be useful to them. Anyway, my number is here. You are welcome to come back to me for any other clarification you need. No problem at all. You're welcome.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, there are a few more. How do environmental, social, and governance risks collectively influence a company's access to ESG linked finance?
You want me to do one more lecture? The question is so small, but the answer is so big here. As I told you, those risk parameters which these investors have put in there, on every parameter they measure you. What are the sustainable practices they followed, like, let us say, energy conservation, how efficiently are using resources, what are the practices adopted to see that I contribute to to the society, socially what I have done, what impact it has had, what governance mechanisms put in place. All these factors are measured on a ratio of 1 to 5, and you're given scores. Data is collected. Then that is assessed once again. It is given to the vetting agencies for further vetting. They have to come back. They will come and do a due diligence of what you have done, what you have claimed rather.
Okay.
That is due diligence is a prerequisite. They come and do it. Based on that, ESG finance is released to you. And they may not straight away say no to you. They'll give you a chance to improve. पैसा नहीं देगा 6 महीने तक रगड़ाएगा. After that also if you fail, you won't get many. They'll say flat. But then you have to be very, very careful. Your reputation is at risk. Once the word spreads in the market that this company is not following this, your doors will be shut forever. You can never be able to approach ESG finance, and then in turn it affects the reputation and business of the company as well, because the news spreads in the market. Today, many of the companies are measured on these parameters. How good the company is in following the practices. So be very, very careful before you even approach for ESG fund. Do your homework very, very clearly. As you correctly put it, assess yourself whether I am ready. That's very important.
Okay. How can CFOs use ESG matrix to demonstrate business reliance and attract ESG focused investors?
Now come back again. I didn't get you.
How can CFOs use
CFO.
use ESG metrics to demonstrate business resilience and attract ESG focused investors?
Investors. Okay. What do you think is the readiness of a CFO today to measure the ESG? Is he aware of what ESG metrics are?
Yes. Yes,
Are
I
you?
think so. I think so. A bit, at least a bit.
With due respect to our fellow professionals, they need a long way to go. But leave alone that. Let us assume for a moment I subscribe to your view that they're aware of it. As I mentioned somewhere in the last slide, they need to prepare a metrics chart. There are about 50 to 60 parameters that are laid down. Leave the assessment fellow. He has got 1,000 parameters. Then CFO will have to spend his life only in doing that metrics. But really the basics related to his industry, the environment in which he operates, and the company in which he works. Those metrics have to be plotted. And then he himself voluntarily should give a dashboard kind of system.
Okay.
Where he gives rating. He says, this is where I stand. Let him give a rating of 1 to 4, 1 to an honest assessment, and subject that to an external audit.
Okay.
It should get vetted. Because tomorrow the question will arise, has it been vetted? Who has checked this? So once he do that, maybe first time he will fail. Second time he will be able to refine it because of the inputs he has got from the external auditor. He will improve upon it. And third time, it will come out as maybe a completely finished product if the right efforts are put in. And that is the time when you should go to the ESG funders and you will invest it. Because by that time, what happens? The word would have spread. Somebody is making a concerted and sincere effort. He has put metrics in place. He is following it. So let us look at this. Curiosity will start arising. They'll come and automatically look at you.
Okay. Next question is, what are the common challenges companies face in quantifying and reporting ESG metrics?
Data availability. Because the data mechanism is more or less today tailored for traditional reporting purposes alone.
Okay.
Like profit ratio, this ratio, that ratio, where have we put in place metrics for this? So getting data is a big challenge today. The reliability of the data is not all that robust for measuring it, because down the line, the employees are all commonly committed to a goal, are not aware and educated as to what they're expected to do.
Okay.
So data is one stumbling block.
Okay.
That needs to be refined first. That news must percolate down the line. This is the object. This is the reason why we are following this. And this is what we're expected to do. Because what happens sometimes, I cannot impose something on anybody. I need to take everybody on board. And you get good inputs even from the down the line people, which I can build into it and start slowly building the data this thing. Okay, companies which are mandatorily required to report. You know one thing, from 2021-22, some parameters came into play. That is why that graded reporting standards have been put in place. You cannot make the report mandatory from day one itself. because everybody knows that one is ready. Some of the reportings are going to come into place only from 2026-27.
Okay.
Because they know that it takes time for companies to come to one level so that the reporting standards are aligned with the standards expected and meet the international standards as well. So data robustness is big issue today, and companies is not required to follow, don't have any data with them.
Correct.
Because
Uh,
they are not required to do that, they have not done it.
correct. Correct. Next question is, how can organizations prevent inconsistencies in ESG data reporting and scoring across different rating agencies?
Different
Rating agencies.
rating agencies. You cannot go to different rating agencies. Once you select one rating agency, you go to one rating agency. And you better follow his rating. We cannot go and tell SEBI, I am not happy with this fellow. That's not allowed at all. And what has happened is, more or less, the rating agencies have got a common rating parameter. And the dashboard is all common with them.
Okay.
Because the end objective is same.
Correct.
So the inconsistencies can be ironed out very quickly. It's not a
Okay.
problem at all.
Okay. Okay. How can directors ensure that ESG strategy is embedded within the company's governance structure and culture?
Good question. If the directors make up their mind that it needs to be a part of the organization's culture itself and it's one of the part of the business, seeing the benefit that it brings over a long period of time, it becomes easy. And not only that, they need to drive it. The ownership has to be assumed and taken by the directors themselves. They need the driving force. They may use the mechanisms as CFO for it. That's different. But on a regular basis, they need to see what happens is once you set a parameter, it is at the end of it. Reviews need to be done. Maybe along one of the agenda for the board meeting should be this. Review needs to be done on a regular basis. Whether I need to require some changes to this, I will make the changes, review on a regular basis and start communicating. This is what we are following. To go to the external world, this is what we are doing. Whether what you're doing is right, take the inputs, correct it. These are all the director's responsibility. Once it happens, it becomes embedded automatically because the message goes down the line. We are
Correct.
committed.
Correct. Next question is, what are the key governance responsibilities of CFOs in enabling transparent ESG-linked financial disclosures?
Everything. All ESG parameters is the primary responsibility of the CFO. He is the one who has to drive it and hand over the director. Do you think a director can sit every day and see what is happening on the governance issues? A simple thing like compliances, regulatory compliances. Mainly connected is ESG itself, like your MCA, regulatory compliance related to MCA, pollution, water control, electricity, forest, mining. He needs to be thoroughly aware of what the compliances are, and he needs to drive it and build it into the governance structure. That this is a simply non-given initiative. It has to be done come what may. Create a dashboard and ensure it is done and drive it. Thereby the board gets the comfort that things are in shape. But nothing prevents the board or an independent director do a random check on what the CFO claims is right or wrong. He has to take that ownership and responsibility for it. Then it becomes easy for him. It's not difficult at all.
Okay. Okay. In what ways CFOs align sustainability targets with capital allocation and financing strategies?
Come back again. Sorry.
Should I repeat? Should I repeat?
Yeah, please repeat.
In
You
what
have
way?
time, ask her. I don't know.
Yes, we have time. Not an issue.
In what ways can CFOs align sustainability targets with capital allocation and financing strategies?
Financing strategy. Okay. As I mentioned in the beginning itself, your traditional capital, business capital cannot be allocated for the purpose of meeting the ESG initiatives. But at the same time, I need to ensure that my capital is spent usefully for the purpose of the business. He's very clear. So what happens is he has to do a very fine balancing act in such a way that by practicing some of the ESG initiatives like improved efficiency in operation, better waste management practices, conservation of resources, etc., you try to save some money. What is the use? What happens to that money which I have saved? I would have spent about, let us say, about 1 lakh of rupee last year on electricity consumption. Today, thanks to my best practices, what has happened is I reduced my electricity consumption by about 20%. That is money saved. What do you do with that capital? I allocate it for better business purposes. So that parameter need to be kept on assessed every time. That also comes into the governance structure of a CFO. He keeps a watch on everything and then accordingly allocates capital for. So what happens? You free capital for business purposes. You need not resort to borrowing.
Okay. Okay. How can directors and CFOs work together to prevent greenwashing in ESG disclosures?
Self-discipline, compliance. No, it is very, very clear. It is not a laughing subject. They need to make it very, very clear from the beginning. These are the ethics we are going to follow. And we are not going to deviate a bit from it. And the consequences of not deviating will be very, very severe. The message has to go across. I start following it myself.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
How can CFOs ensure proper due diligence while ensuring ESG finance and preparing sustainability linked loan documentation?
Yeah, it's a good question. How do you do a normal due diligence? What are all the things you do for that? Have you gone through due diligences?
Yeah, we have gone through.
What do you do normally for that? What are the
We check
kind
it
of
from
documents you prepare?
multiple. We check it from multiple parameters: legal, tax perspective, financial perspective.
Yeah.
So there are various such
What
aspects.
are the documents you look into?
Under legal and everything, we check all the registration documents. Then, yeah. So
Are you aware that
then,
there is a due diligence checklist running into only around 50 pages?
no,
When you
no,
deal with the due diligence of a company, there are
no.
multiple areas which are supposed to look into, including the shareholders, etc.,
Okay.
covering the vendors, covering the legal entities, everything. Management structure, the composition of the director, background of the directors, everything need to be looked into. So same kind of due diligence checklist, incorporating additionally the sustainability practices need to be prepared. And because automatically when they come for due diligence, they will pose all these questions. That 50 pages will become 60 pages.
Okay.
And you'll be subject to that. Better be ready for that.
Yes.
That is how they look at things. So CFO needs to be very thoroughly aware of it.
True.
The first
Yeah.
time it looked difficult, but second time onwards you become a veteran because you would have gone through such a rigorous process, you will become an expert. So such so and so that even the other diligence becomes easy for you. It will be cakewalk.
Okay.
But today the rigors of ESG finance diligence is very, very tough. Very tough. It covers even parameters which are not covered in the traditional finance.
Okay. Okay. Sir, there were only these many questions. Now I hand over to Riddhi ma'am for vote of thanks.
Yeah. Good afternoon,
Otherwise, you'll
everyone.
say, get out now.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Sustainability Reporting Standards Board of ICAI, I extend my sincere gratitude to each of you for joining us today for the enlightening webinar on the role of boards and CFO in driving ESG finance. Your participation has been instrumental in making today's session a success. A heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker, C. PG Subramaniam sir, for sharing his deep expertise and practical perspective on the role of boards and CFOs in driving ESG finance. His presentation has truly illuminated how ESG finance is transforming the way business think, operate, and create value. Today, we have understood that the roles of the boards and the CFOs extend far beyond the financial stewardship. They are now central to steering organizations towards responsible growth, ethical governance, and long-term sustainability. The discussions this afternoon clearly emphasize that the roles of the board and the CFOs extend far beyond traditional financial stewardship, which now stands at the forefront of steering organizations towards responsible growth, ethical governance, and long-term sustainability. It reminds that the sustainability is not a separate agenda; it is integral to every financial and strategic decision. CFOs play a vital role in ensuring accurate and transparent reporting on ESG targets, in managing risk and cost, and ensuring that the sustainability information is meaningfully aligned with the financial statements. Board, on their part, set the tone at the top, embedding sustainability into corporate purpose, strategy, and oversight. To conclude, we can state that the boards provide purpose, CFO provides precision, and together they drive the transformation towards responsible and resilient finance. We invite all participants to join on our upcoming webinar scheduled for 23rd October 2025, that is Thursday, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., where we will continue exploring critical topics related to sustainability reporting and best practices. Once again, thank you for your active engagement and thoughtful contributions. Your dedication to advancing sustainability practices is invaluable, and we look forward to your continued involvement in our ongoing initiatives as we collectively pave the way towards a more sustainability and resilient future. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.